Hey, this is Laura Wortman.
And I'm Keggy Parrish from the DEWDROPS.
And you're listening to Recess with Spinelli.
Yeah!
Ow!
You are listening to Recess with Spinelli, WSPN, Saratoga Springs, New York, and Hoxton FM, London, England. And today we are here with the modern Americana roots husband and wife duo from Virginia, but now residing in Baltimore, the DEWDROPS. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Now let's start with a little bit of the history, so we'll go in chronological order here. I understand you guys met in 2003, but the duo didn't officially come together as the DEWDROPS until about 2007, 2008. You want to fill us in some of the details?
Sure. Yeah, we met in college. Music was always something that we had a lot of fun doing together. A lot of songs being played over the years. And then in 2008, we decided that we would start making our first record and think about quitting our jobs. And in 2009, we did that and have been doing it ever since.
So how did you go from the transition of being teachers to being full-time musicians? And actually, what did you teach?
Well, I taught kindergarten. I was a kindergarten teaching assistant for a year, and I was also a farmer for a little bit before that. And Keggy here was a high school special education teacher for a couple years. And then we entered a Prairie Home Companions talent show contest in 2008. And we were broadcast on the show, and that was really the stepping stone to quitting our jobs. We got married that year, we made a record that year, and then we decided that we were just going to leave everything and try to hit the road and see what would happen.
It seemed like we either did it then or we'd never do it. You know, we were at that point where I think I was 28, you were probably 25, and, I probably could have easily stayed teaching for, I don't know, the next 27 years till retirement. So we decided, let's give this a shot and see what happens. We might kick ourselves if we didn't try it. So that's what we did, and we're still on the track. I mean, you always worry about money, right? Especially if you have been out of college for a little while and you've gotten, a straight job that has benefits and all that stuff. But at the same time, we had so many friends who were artists, who were musicians or visual artists or full-time farmers, who were making it work and, following what they wanted to pursue. And we just thought, we should give ourselves a chance to follow our thing too and see what happens.
How did you guys get started initially? Was this something you started at a very early age, or was this something that came along during your college years?
Well, I started playing guitar when I was like 11. Music was something that I always loved as a kid. There was a lot of music on in my house. And I just got into playing at, 11, so fifth grade, something like that. And it's just something that was always a lot of fun. That led to jamming with friends in various settings with rock bands or playing acoustic guitars or guitar and mandolin, guitar and banjo, that kind of stuff. And then when Laura and I met, we both decided, hey, let's focus on singing harmonies together and playing acoustic instruments.
I grew up in a house with a lot of music, and my dad especially was interested in teaching me harmonies while we'd be in the car listening to the radio. And I guess they figured out at an early age that I could sing and I had an affinity for music, and so there was a piano in my house and I'd play along to some songs. I always learned everything by ear, and I eventually picked up the guitar in middle school. And then I played in a couple of bands in high school, some rock bands. And just always was in my room playing guitar and singing Beatles songs. So that just carried on over to folk music naturally.
So are you both largely self-taught musicians?
Pretty much. I took a few lessons when I was in high school, a few classical guitar lessons, and the guitar teacher wanted me to learn how to read music, and that just didn't stick. She was a Grateful Dead fan, and so was I. So we quickly transitioned into learning like Grateful Dead songs. Most of the learning has been just self-taught, listening to records and getting together with friends, because the kind of music that we play, a lot of it is done in somebody's living room, and they share a song, and then you share a song, or you jam with somebody on their song, and then the opposite happens when you play yours. So, that's how it works.
Now, do you think that self-taught attitude towards music does play a role in, I guess, the heritage of Americana music?
Yeah, I think so. I think the real purpose behind most of American traditional music and the different roots that have come out of that genre have been about people getting together and hanging out, kind of like we are right now, in a room very close together. To pass the time, to celebrate life, to figure out what it means to be human. I think that's a big part of it.
So you guys are sharing the stage with the Sea, and that definitely seems like an appropriate combination for a stage tonight. How did you guys meet? Did you know each other beforehand, or was this like an internet meetup?
Well, we've actually never met. This is the first time that we're meeting these guys. But as it happens in folk music, you kind of hear about each other at a distance. And so we've been hearing about them for years through other musicians and other fans. We were like, have you met these guys yet? Even last night we played at a venue where the promoter was asking us to say hello to them from her and that she's looking forward to having them back. So no, but we've heard their music and love when the opportunity arises for us to do an evening of duos because we're such fans of that music. So I think it'll be a really fun night.
Now, one of the things that definitely comes to mind when listening to your music is probably one of your character sounds, which is that harmony, the harmonizing between your two voices. So when you're listening to another band that also has harmony, one that comes to mind would be the Sea, whom you're sharing the stage with. When you're listening to another band that also harmonizes, what is going through your head that just makes you connect with that music as a listener would when they're listening to yours?
We both really love duo music. And so I think we're extremely attracted to harmony singing. The blend of the people singing, I think that always hits me. Like when two voices are coming together and it sounds like one, but there are two notes, I find that to be very striking.
Yeah, it feels kind of like coming home to me. There's just this warm quality when you've got two voices going together. And yeah, it's something that just doesn't get old. It's really a vibrant way of making music happen, two voices in there together.
So for Americana music in general, and playing a very simplistic sound in a way, do you think that lends itself to focus on certain aspects of instrumentation or certain aspects of harmonizing that could get lost in more complicated sounds or more complicated genres?
Yeah, I think playing as two people, as playing as a duo and playing primarily acoustic instruments, there is a kind of focus that happens as you're listening to this kind of music. Being behind the microphones, being behind the instruments and singing, there is nowhere to hide. If you hit a wrong note or if your partner hits a wrong note, it's very noticeable. It can't really be covered up because there's only one other element that's happening at the same time. But I think that's one of the great things about it is that you really can tap into the fine details that are going on. And I know this is true for me. The more that I listen to duos, especially the singing, and I would say it's true for the instrumentation as well. As time goes on, I can dig in a little deeper and a little deeper, and it means that I can begin to hear, okay, that voice is there and that voice is placed there, and that's why it is hitting me and making me feel an emotional thing. And the same with the instruments. There's no right or wrong way to do it. There's a million different variations, probably more than that you could figure out in how to arrange a song. But yeah, there's nowhere to really run when you're playing it. And when you're listening to it, you can really focus in on all the fine details there. And that's one reason I love it. I can't get enough of it. Another thing that doesn't get old for me.
Actually, what are some of the bands that you initially inspired you to play this music? And when did you transition from learning those older songs, playing those older songs, to then writing your own original music?
I grew up listening to a lot of female folk singers, so Joni Mitchell was on a lot, and Emmylou Harris and Nancy Griffith, and like I said, the Beatles. And then as I got into later in high school and in college, I started listening to a lot of jam band music, so like Fish mainly. But yeah, there was some kind of transition, I think, from having a folk background because of my parents, and then like I just wanted to go back into that. So it was like, I don't know, all of a sudden Gillian Welch presented herself, and from listening to her sound, I just kept going back and back and back. And then at that time, I had met Keggy in college, and he was having a similar journey with music. I think maybe started it even earlier than I did, but we started listening to a lot of old music and people who were also interpreting it, like Mike Seeger. And then, yeah, we developed a repertoire of playing a lot of those old traditional songs, but in there somewhere, because Keggy had always been working on, writing poetry after school, had written some short fiction. There were writings kind of all over the place, and I just one day put some music to one of his poems that I found, and that was pretty much the start of writing music. Like, it just happened. It wasn't that the intention was there immediately, but from there, it felt like the most natural thing to do was to start writing our own music, and then like interpreting traditional songs, but in our own lyrics and our own music. And it seems like it just continues to progress from there. Like, you might think that our new songs, even right now, have zero tie to old music, but they do. I feel like we're still interpreting the same themes, even in humanity.
Yeah. I think for me, the moment was we got this really big songbook. It was a compilation of songs that Alan Lomax had gathered over the years of his traveling and recording various people through the South and through other countries too. And having the book, I'd been used to like listening to the records, to having the music come through the ears, to just eating up the music. But having the book and like being able to read stanza by stanza, chorus by chorus, it really made me want to take a stab at that. I began to like see it instead of just hear it, and I thought it would be interesting to try to write songs for us, not knowing what would happen to it, but just to make a project out of it. And so that thing is still like really interesting to me, so still working on it. Probably always will.
Now, out of curiosity, do you find it more difficult or perhaps easier in a way to write instrumentals to tell a story without lyrics, or does that pose a whole another challenge?
Gosh, it's a whole other thing, and yet that's all related in there. I mean, I love instrumental music of all kinds. Some of the first music that we listened to together was like instrumental kind of string band stuff, ranging from like old time classic fiddle tunes to more adventurous kind of like new acoustic music or jazz played on the instruments that would be in a typical bluegrass band. So definitely love a lot of that stuff. There's so many different worlds that kind of sound can take you to. But yeah, I guess we focused more on the words. We have written a few instrumental songs, and like Remington, that's on our record Tangled Country. That to me tells a story for sure. Every time I play it, or every time I hear it, I'm taken back to the place that we wrote it in Baltimore. So both like really powerful ways to tell stories with music, just different, I guess.
The loneliest songs are beautiful things.
Now, do you think every song that aims to tell a story which people can relate, either instrumental or lyrical, needs to have some sort of conflict or some sort of thing to overcome in a way?
A lot of our songs and a lot of my attention has gone to that kind of thing. I guess for me, I am looking for some kind of release of tension to happen by the end of the song. That may be the simplest way to say it, because this is a whole huge can of worms to get into for sure. But yeah, I love songs that have that tension that builds, and then by the end there's a certain release, or there's a certain something that you know about that you didn't know about when you first started the song. So yeah, I think that tension part is big, and I think it's the same thing that you see in other kinds of art, whether it be film or literature or other kind of visual arts. That's something that tends to get me every time.
Actually, off the latest album, Tangled Country, is there something that it was building towards that, that released at the end that was a revelation to you after you made the album that really came together and clicked?
Yeah, so there's a song on there called Horses, and it was inspired by just the title of a book that Keggy had seen in somebody's apartment. And then he took this term half-broken horses and put it into this song, and kind of wove this idea that we're all very flawed people, but that's essentially a good thing, and we should be taken for who we are and what we do. And in thinking about that, it became apparent that song also echoed a little bit of somebody that we know personally, and her choices and her past. And
yeah, it's like I found out something about this old friend of mine that I'd never thought about before, never quite processed it in that way. So that kind of revelation is a nice thing when it happens. I was also thinking about the first song on the record, which was probably the last song to be finished and maybe the last to be recorded. That song went through a bunch of different variations before really finding what stuck and really figuring out, oh, this is what that song is. And it was finished, I guess, when we both came together and fine-tuned the words, but also found the right kind of arrangement for it and the right kind of flow of chords that was going to make it happen in different sections of the song. So you never quite know what you're going to find when you start down this path of figuring out what a song can be. It's a journey, an epic journey sometimes.
Now, for the song Horses, did you ever present that to your friend and explain to them your enlightenment in a way?
That's probably another journey to go down. Yeah, no, not exactly. We'll see what happens with that. Yeah. For the album Tangled Country, I understand that you just released it on vinyl as well. I understand this is actually quite an achievement in today's vinyl era in the backlogging of getting everything ready. So is this kind of make it more tangible in the way for yourselves? That's a good way to say it. I mean, it's analog. It's this different form of listening to music that I didn't grow up in a house where we had a turntable. I think Laura did. You listened to records as a kid, but I never really knew what it sounded like until the last 10 years or so. And as I've gotten to go back and sort of listen to my favorite records again, it's like listening to them for the first time because it's in this different form. It's got a different sort of thing happening. So it's really cool for us to be able to do it, having loved listening to other records for a long time in that format, to be able to listen to our songs in this kind of new and different way. That's different than putting it on the phone or putting the CD in the car. It's like, all right, here we go. We've got two sides, 22 minutes each, and we're going to sit down and we're going to listen to them. And when we're done with that first side, we're going to get up and turn it over, and then we're going to sit back down and we're going to take in that next side, and it's a good thing.
All right, and final thoughts. Is there anything else you would like to add? Anything else you would like to say, promote, get off your chest?
Come out to see live music. That's a big part of our lives. Presenting shows, but also going to see other people play. We were at a show last week in Baltimore. Great West African guitar player named Bombino. And really powerful show. Guy who doesn't speak any English, and yet the music that he's playing, it got into everybody's heart, and everybody was dancing and having the best time. So come out, support live music, make it happen, have a great time, present your own shows. But yeah, come out and be a part of it.
Thank you so much for joining me tonight, guys.
Hey, thanks a lot, Alex.
Yeah, thank you.
You have been listening to Recess with Spinelli here on WSPN Saratoga Springs Skidmore College Radio and Hoxton FM London, UK. And we have been speaking with the Honey DEWDROPS out of Baltimore, Maryland. And their current album, Tangled Country, is out and available now.